The Signs of the Future, First Sunday in Advent, Sermon number 1, November 23rd, 1871. This is the text from the Gospels, with which the ecclesiastical year usually begins. It is read every year to the believers in church and explained in various ways according to the preacher's purpose. Although many speak of signs and miracles, only a few truly understand what these signs consist of or how they will announce the time to come. Most preachers choose explanations from political life, attempting to interpret what is spiritual through worldly examples. This effort is as futile as trying to explain the spiritual world through the material, when it should be the other way around, because the events in the world arise from spiritual upheavals. Behold, my children, when, in those times, I spoke of signs and foretold to the Jews the destruction of their temple, only a few believed me, for they did not know me. And now, when I tell you the same, just as many doubters and unbelievers expect the signs to come from a different direction than where they will actually appear. At that time, I predicted the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the end of the Jewish people as an independent nation. I told them that the way in which they observed their religious laws stood in contradiction to what Moses and the prophets had intended to give them, that an end must be made to this misinterpretation and practice by means of the true understanding for which I had come and sacrificed my life. But they would not relinquish what, through long habit, had become their belief and religion. For them, the temple in Jerusalem represented the spiritual structure of their faith. The conditions in that temple had become corrupt. By preaching and practicing their religion only for the benefit of priests and Pharisees. So the material temple had to be destroyed, or mankind would decay in the stagnant, murky waters of their basest passions. A new, spiritual, and everlasting temple, whose foundation stone I laid during my earthly life, could only be built upon the ruins of the former. From that time onward, and since my ascension, signs have been given and continue to be given until my second coming, calling people to conversion. But it has never yet seemed the right time to destroy the present temple, namely Rome and its establishment. Even when a ray of light, heralding the future, illuminated many a heart, Rome remained dark, growing darker rather than brighter. What once happened in Jerusalem, where the armed Roman power and tolerated the religion and customs of the Jews for a long time, has happened also with Rome to this day. The mighty rulers, aware of the corruption in Rome, chose not to bring an end to it, but used it for their own purposes. Yet, just as the Jews brought about the destruction of their temple and their downfall through their pride and rebellion, so the structure of the infallible one upon Peter's chair in Rome will collapse through the presumption and blindness of its own assistants. It will have to make room for my teaching once again. What happened when I first came to earth will happen again. There will be signs, and blessed are those who understand and heed them for the benefit of themselves and their fellow men. Spiritually, what has been foretold will begin, and indeed has already begun, just as it did during my earthly pilgrimage. Wars and uprisings, the persecution of my followers, fear of the future, and many kinds of diseases were the early signs then, and they will not be absent now. Not that I send them, but men shape their own destiny through their failure to understand my divine words, which remain unchanged forever. The wind of spiritual freedom is blowing once again, penetrating all human hearts. Human rights, long trampled underfoot by the more powerful, now demand recognition. Even a worm turns when crushed. The mighty of the church and of the world have trodden upon the worm long enough, insisting that human dignity begins only with them. But they have gone too far. They feel this now, and in their fear are seeking ways to halt this development. but in vain. As in Jerusalem, so too will these mighty ones reap what they have sown. At that time, I advise my followers to be moderate in all things, to keep their souls and bodies pure and not misuse them, so they could stand purified before the Son of Man when he comes. The same admonition applies today. Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. Keep yourselves pure. Gain strength through your faith in my love and my divine care, which, though it may allow terrible things to occur, never punishes those who have followed my teaching with childlike trust and practiced it with faithful zeal. The signs of the time will pass you by when you have learned to adapt your body to minimal physical needs and are instead more concerned with building up your spiritual being. Then, just as my followers once did, you will praise my greatness, love, and mercy. Even over the smoking ruins of worldly splendor and battlefields where matter has been defeated, but the spirit set free. Amen.